I'm the one hiding under your bed. Teeth ground sharp and eyes glowing red.
Let me just preface this by saying I'm not exactly a believer in paranormal, but I do find it interesting and often try to spook myself by engaging in content related to it. Unfortunately, I find most of this content to be clear hoaxes, but it's still fun for me nonetheless. That being said, I used to work as housekeeping/janitorial in the emergency department of my local hospital. I was a second shift worker, working 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Every day about 15 minutes before punching out, I would exit the emergency department with my cleaning cart, enter the porta closet nearby, and get fresh supplies and water for my co-worker working the emergency department at night. Let's call her Wendy. Now Wendy, working nights, usually wasn't as busy as I was. The traffic through the hospital from our relatively rural area wasn't constant like a big city would be at night time. Thus, she would be tasked with cleaning other closed units, only returning to the emergency department when called upon via walkie. So there I was, getting the cart ready, fresh rags, water and cleaning agent mixture, empty trash bag, etc. And I wheeled my cart from the emergency department to the women's health center, as that's where Wendy liked to start her work for the night. They are on the same floor, down one long hallway from one another. I pushed my cart in through the hallway door, which was employee access to the women's health center. Upon entering, if you went left, you'd find about 10 exam rooms down a hallway, and right was a narrow passage between the wall and registration desk. At the end of that desk is another door that leads to the waiting room for the women's health center. I parked my car at the fork in the department and went toward the waiting room where I heard Wendy walking about, to let her know the cart is ready. Since this unit was carpeted, I figured she was getting the vacuum ready or something. I opened the door to the waiting room, and immediately I noticed the women's bathroom to my right closing, and resting upon the latch, not closing completely. Just in case Wendy is in there and is indecent, I gave it a quick knock. No answer. So I reached for the handle and, as I do, the door closes completely, and I hear the button lock snap into place. Okay, I figure I can sit for a few minutes and let her know when she's done that the cart is all set. I wait there for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, when all of a sudden, Wendy comes out of the same door I did. I immediately felt my blood run cold when I saw her, and quickly jumped up and grabbed the bathroom door handle. No resistance from the lock. It opens right up, and is completely empty. I explained to Wendy what happened when she noticed the look of shock on my face. She told me the next day that my story kinda kept her spooked all night. Anywho, that's my story. I've had a couple of weird experiences happen there at that old-ass hospital throughout the years, but this was the most interesting in my opinion. Hope you all liked it. I'm not a very good storyteller. A few years ago, I worked in a home for people with mental disorders and/or disabilities. My profession was a totally different thing, but they were on a search and hired me on the spot. I was just there, cooking for the people, playing games, making music, some art stuff. But quickly I was asked to do the night shifts too. We had a bed, a nightstand with a flower, in quite a big room to rest in. It was the room of the former parents of the house, a married pair who were in charge of everything in that house. As someone who didn't sleep well since youth, I was always wide awake, and so I started to read all the papers and notes about the house I could find. Quickly I discovered that some horrible things happened before, and that this would be the reason they had to hire a lot of new people. So now the much stranger parts. Often at night, especially when I tried to rest, I heard voices, laughter, and distant music. So I got up, thinking it was one of the patients. But whenever I left the wing of the building I was in, it suddenly all went quiet. I searched all the house but never found a source. One day I had my dog with me, a giant but blind one, fearless and always hungry. But when we entered the room, she suddenly was all shy and fearsome. I had to lay down some clothes of mine she could walk on. She ate her food, pressed down on the floor, and quickly jumped in the bed. Then the chanting and laughter starts, and she was growling like I had never heard before. I didn't find rest that night, and talked to a co-worker later that day. We were alone in the house, because all patients were working. As I asked him if he thinks there's something haunting the place, he clearly said yes. He and some others often hear laughter and music at night. While we talked, we were suddenly interrupted by two female voices, speaking beside the service hatch of the kitchen. We looked at each other, opened the hatch, and found the room completely empty. Two other co-workers saw a white stretch limousine at night. My wife heard horses running around her when visiting. The dog started to bark at the same time. A lot of strange stories. Disclaimer: I'm not the best storyteller, but I'm not here to dramatize or exaggerate a spooky story either. Just thought I'd give my real experience. Not anything super crazy, but I hope this is the right place to share it. Also, trigger warning for anyone sensitive to the topic of someone unaliving themselves. After I graduated last May, I decided to take up a job at my local jail. Nothing long term, just figured I'd work for a year and save up some cash before college. Flash forward a little bit, and I'm only a few weeks into training. I've always liked the idea that ghosts really existed, but at that point, I really couldn't say I ever actually saw one. However, that all changed while taking post one night. The time was a little after 5 a.m, and I was sitting behind my desk, absolutely bored to tears. So, being a good little deputy, I was spinning around in my chair, honestly, trying not to fall asleep. This was hour 11 of a 12-hour shift, so I'm just killing time before I get to go home. Now, to give you a little visual of where I am, I'm in a big, giant room with a bunch of cells. At one end of the room is the officer's desk, with big windows behind it. These windows are super reflective, so officers can look into the pod from the hallway, but inmates can't look out into the hallway from inside the pod. At the other end of the pod are the cells. This particular pod has some cells that were behind a second pane of glass. Still with me? Because this is important, I promise. Anyways, I'm spinning around in my chair at my desk, and happen to glance up at the reflective windows behind the desk. As I do, some movement catches my eye upstairs. There is someone walking around upstairs, out of their cell, but behind the glass. I stare at disbelief for a moment, and instantly freak out. I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of, holy shit, who the hell is out of their cell at this hour? Oh man, my ass is grasped. I quickly turn around and see no one up there. I scramble and check the monitor that gives me control of the cell doors, and make sure all of them are locked, which they are. I even go up there myself and make sure everything is as secure as it can be. somewhere in the middle of me making sure I'm not about to get fired, it dawned on me. That was a ghost. There was no mistaking it. I 1000% saw someone up there. Now, I don't mean I saw a quick little shadow or a suspicious looking speckle of dust. No, I was distinctly looking at someone in an orange jumpsuit walking around up there. I could tell you this guy's haircut, his height, general build, and even what kind of beard he had. To be honest, I was totally banking on this happening at some point. I mean, from my first day I could tell that place was uber haunted. So I immediately get my corporal on the horn and tell her excitedly that I saw a ghost. But things don't end there. After that I was bragging to anyone and everyone about my little encounter, with some mixed reactions. My sergeant says he doesn't really believe in ghosts, but some deputies told me they've definitely seen some paranormal stuff on duty too. However, it's what the sergeant on day shift shared that has really stuck with me. He told me that they had an inmate take his own life in that same pod a few years prior. I'd already been told that by a few people who have been there for a while. I gave a description of the guy I saw, and we decided to look up the inmate just to see if they looked the same. It was him. It was definitely the guy I saw walking around upstairs. Right down to his skinny face and the billy goat beard. There was no mistaking it. I've talked to some inmates about it, and I've had more than one tell me that sometimes they can see and hear someone walk by their cells and peeking in at the late hours of the night. It can't be a correctional officer they're talking about, because they're always wearing an orange jumpsuit. Well, that's my spooky experience. I really didn't have any notable encounters after that, but I'd be happy to answer any questions any of you might have. But I hope you found this interesting. I want to start off by saying I don't know much about the paranormal. I believe that there's probably stuff out there. I've done a couple of ghost tours, but I've never had anything happen that genuinely scared me or felt genuinely paranormal. I do in-home healthcare, and I work the overnight shift. Recently, I was placed in a new home. The house is a newly remodeled 3-bedroom house, but there's only one person living there currently, and I am able to sleep on shift. The first night I worked, I didn't sleep much. I catnapped for a couple of hours, mainly because it takes some time for me to adjust to new homes. I had an especially weird feeling here though, and chalked it up to general anxiety. At around 4 AM, the power went out in the home, and I was horrified. I froze. I was completely overcome with anxiety. I'm not scared of the dark. I've never reacted like this before, but something felt wrong. After the lights went out, I heard what sounded like a door in the back of the house slamming. I tried to rationalize it. I went home, I forgot about it, and returned to work. The next week or so was uneventful, except for the feeling I got when I was inside the house. I am still, to this day, terrified of going down the hallway. The bathroom I'm able to use is in its back room at the end of the hall, and I am terrified to go back there. I genuinely will not go down the hall unless it's an emergency. After a week passed, I started trying to actually sleep there. I slept on the couch in the living room, with a couple of lights on, YouTube on the TV for background noise. It's very cozy and comfy. Except for I'm having these nightmares. Every time I sleep at this house, I have nightmares. Not just normal nightmares. They feel so real. It almost always starts with me waking up on the couch. Except for one time when I had a dream about being in this tiny town in Illinois that I had never once heard of. And when I googled it in real life, a bunch of ghost stories popped up. So that's fun. But in my dreams, I always wake up on the couch, feeling sick to my stomach with anxiety. Sometimes I can move. Sometimes I'm frozen. I hear whispers. Someone talking to me. I never really remember what was said when I wake up. Or I'll see figures standing in front of me. Last night, when I had the dream, I was able to move. I stood up and walked down that hallway, and when I got to the back room, there was a body in a rocking chair, and they were like smiling at me and whispering something. I woke up in real life, literally shaking, and I could have sworn I heard a voice when I woke up, but I was too shaken up to know what was said. I asked my co-worker this morning if they'd ever experienced anything weird here, and apparently the 2 bedrooms had been previously occupied, and they both passed away last year. She said that sometimes cabinets open and there's weird noises. I don't have these dreams at home. I've never had dreams like these. And honestly, I'm terrified. I don't know if this is related to the clients that passed or if it's something else entirely. I have to go back there in an hour, and after last night, I'm genuinely terrified to be there. Over the couple of months I've worked at this house, the power has gone out multiple times a week. I hear noises throughout the night, and literally, every time I sleep there, I'm having nightmares like this. I'm scared to tell someone in real life because I don't want them to think I'm actually crazy. I'm not sure if it's ghosts or something worse. Maybe I am going crazy, but I just needed to tell someone. It has already been 3 weeks since I started working night shift in the office. I worked in a small private company where we encode documents, and we work on the 3rd floor of this small old building. The only entrance to my office is to take the back door of the building to get to the stairs at the back to the entrance of my office. The 1st floor is a small local bank, while the 2nd floor is abandoned and is currently being remodeled to put in more computers that we can use. But it has 3 rooms and just a really long hallway. On the 3rd floor where we worked, mostly just cubicles of office desks, the manager's office, and a large conference room. Well, in the office we had a lot of unspoken rules, but the one that really got my attention was the rule of never go to the 2nd floor alone. This is because apparently there have been some rumors that our 2nd floor is haunted and would regularly make its presence known to those who go there during the night shift. Our boss even had it blessed 4 times already, ever since we got the building, but the haunting still continued. So one time, when the bathrooms on our floor were unavailable due to the pipes being fixed, 2 of my female co-workers, Jen and Anne, decided to go to the 2nd floor bathroom. They asked me and another male co-worker, Rymark, to come with them to the 2nd floor for extra protection. Me and Rymark didn't mind because we were looking for an excuse to go out and have a smoke break. Once we got to the 2nd floor, all the lights were turned off. We opened the 1st office room because it is where the bathroom was. It was decent and big enough for 2 people. The girls went to the bathroom while me and Rymark were by the pantry of the room just outside the bathroom smoking. After about 5 minutes, me and Rymark heard movement from the room, and we even joked around that the haunting had started, but we ultimately convinced ourselves that it was just rats. When the girls finished doing their business, we made our way out of the office. It was then that we heard the bathroom toilet flush, and the lights in the bathroom turned on. Rymark and Anne decided to go back and turn the lights off. But the moment they turned the corner, I felt really cold, and a chill ran down my spine as I began to hear movement from the room I was in. I felt someone hold onto my hand, and when I looked, it was Jen. She was looking scared. Then we both saw one of the chairs move as if someone moved it to sit down. I quickly covered Jen's mouth before she could scream. We just stood there and looked at the empty chair, and I felt as if someone was actually looking at us, as if I could picture it in my mind, that someone was smiling. It felt like an eternity, until we heard a scream from the bathroom. I saw Rymark and Anne running towards us. They pulled me and Jen out of the room, and all four of us ran back to the third floor. They were both pale white and shaking. They told us that when they were going to turn the lights off in the bathroom, they both saw the faucet on the sink turning and water begin to run down, and the toilet flushed again. And then the light turned off on its own. They both stood in fear until they both swore on their lives that they heard someone whisper something to them. That was when they screamed and ran. They were not able to make out what was said in the whisper, and when we re-entered the office, we were all visibly shaken. Our shift manager turned and looked at us and said, "Second floor? Let me guess, first room?" I was in shock because how did she know we went to the first room? And why was she so casual about it? We mumbled for a response, and she just replied with, "He doesn't like it when a lot of people go to his room at once. Next time, go to the third room, the one at the end of the hallway. The one there is much more friendly because they are kids. But just don't go to the second room." I have no idea how she can be this casual about what was happening. But, safe to say, I never went to the second floor ever again. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you all so much for listening. If you have a story you'd like to share with the channel, please send it to my email. It's found in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel memberships are now available, with custom badges and emojis. Only one tier at the moment, but more will be added soon, with more perks. So, feel free to check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And, as always, the biggest thank you to all of you. I truly appreciate all of your support throughout the years. And remember,
Papa loves you.